Booze and boards, boards and booze. Bad guys at large, it's bad news. No beer this time, so we won't lose. We found their lair, they'll pay their dues. The town is saved, so now we booze. Booze and boards, boards and booze. With Mickey and Jeb.
Surprise! Where'd Mickey go?
That's the stupidest intro ever. I hope Jeff cuts that out.
He's the one who started hiding behind it, and I'm like, I was trying to think of a good intro.
He wasn't supposed to be hiding. I am really short.
Yeah, I know.
Jeff's like, Mickey, you look stupid. I'm going to be the star of this video. Okay, hey, guess what we're playing?
This is a big-ass game.
That's not what it's called.
The Edge Dawnfall. This is the war chest. It actually says war chest on there. So it's got a lot of stuff, and all that stuff is used for war.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see it. Let's switch this around real quick.
Yeah, I like this side better.
The back's really cool looking.
Because it shows all the factions.
Yeah, this is like
figures.
These are the figures that you get in this game. It's like pretty amazing.
There's one of them.
Yeah, we're partially set up to show you guys how to play in a little bit here. But anyways, alright, so a little bit of background. This is, let's see, it's by Awakening Realms, right?
Awaken Realms?
Awaken Realms. And it was a Kickstarter, and this is the second, this is like the, I think they called it 1.6 version of the game. Why 1.6? I have no idea. I didn't play the first version. I have no clue about the first version. All I know is I saw it. I saw it on Kickstarter, and I was like, "That thing looks really cool." And it's
there we go.
And
that's what he got on Kickstarter.
And I was like, "This is looks really cool." And and I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna back this thing." And I didn't really know what I was getting into, as Jeb blocks me out of the whole video. And then funny thing is, so we were at a convention and I walked by and somebody was playing it and I went, oh, yeah, I went over to get Jeb, come look what I did. Oh. And I was like, holy cow.
Mickey's dead.
Yeah, so, but all this box, a lot of it is the massive figures.
So and each faction has like this type of thing?
Yeah.
So you can tell that there's 6 of them.
Yeah, so there's 6 in the box.
And that holds all the figures and tokens.
I mean, the board isn't exceptionally... I mean, it's a big board, but it's not like...
It's not...
Oh my gosh, it's like... Although there's 2 boards, so you can play with 4 people, now all of a sudden it's a little bigger. But anyhow, basically, it was advertised as a skirmish game that you basically started... like, in the middle of the skirmish. Like, no, like, set up, and you're in the middle of battle. Like, there's no, I'm gonna
you can
strategically
set up with people
move
around you.
Not that there's no strategy to the game, but there's basically no setup before you, I mean, there's setup, but there's not part while you're playing to strategically be like, you know, I got a couple turns where I'm gonna, you know, go hide behind this bush or blah, blah, blah. It's like...
Or wait till Mickey comes to attack me.
Right. Here's the battlefield. Here's your figures. You're gonna, like, there is no line to start behind or anything. Right. It is, when you deploy any place that you can't be adjacent to certain things, but you can... Like, you want to be on the other side of the end of the board, go right ahead.
But you're going to be far away from stuff you need. So.
Yeah. So it's... And so that's kind of the intriguing part to me, because I think both Jeb and I are, like, very intrigued by the whole miniatures world and gaming, and we can't, like... Well, it's not that we can't. We play too many other things, and there's too much of a learning curve and too much of an investment, and every time we find something that we think we're going to be interested in, we just haven't. So, like, we're not Warhammer people. We tried to play Pulp City for a little bit.
Pulp City's probably the farthest
we got with something, and
Relic Knights is one that we backed on Kickstarter and whatnot.
And if you know anything about Relic Knights, I mean, I have the first version, and the second version came out, was supposed to be more streamlined and everything, so Never played the first one, hoping that I could convert all my models to play the second one. Jeb's in and on too, and now we're sitting on waiting, wondering if, if we're ever even going to see our investment come back in anything. So that kind of sucks. But anyways, so it kind of like self-contained, jump into the action skirmish is what they they advertised. That's what got me hooked to backing it. It does have like a campaign and stuff like that. And I'll be perfectly honest, I had forgotten about all that stuff. I'm sure I read it, but I wasn't really focused
not
on
the
that.
main
And
thing for you.
you know, when I opened the box, and even when I showed Jeb, I was like, holy cow.
Oh yeah, he just kept pulling stuff out. I'm like, how much is there?
I know, like lots of like sheets to track stuff and campaign books and multiple campaign books and stickers that go on stuff and a lot of content, and obviously by the box you can they went all out. So anyways, went all in on version 1.6 and it's only supposed to take an hour to play. I will tell you right now, your first games are going to take over an hour unless you've already played it.
And that's mostly because of like all the effects and interactions and stuff like that. It's not a difficult game
at all.
Right. It's not an hour because of difficulty. It's more of just there's a lot of things that you have to learn in order for you to be able to play it at a faster pace.
The basic mechanics of the game are super simple. It's once you put all the powers and your abilities and how am I going to interact with that guy and what can he do back to me? Right, you gotta learn what your opponent is able to do, or you're going to get crushed also.
Right.
So that's why I'm telling you that your first games are not going to be 30 to 60 minutes. However, I will say, after playing with Jeb, if we knew our factions, I do think we could play a game in an hour.
Yeah.
Definitely. It would be kind of like playing a card game, except I'm moving models around the board. Because I feel like once you know your options, they are limited. It's like, what can I do this turn? This is all I can do this turn. And that's it.
Right.
So anyhow, the only other thing I guess is this has an age recommendation of
no babies, no 0 to 3, because they can eat these parts.
As a recommendation of 14 plus, I'm gonna say that's probably pretty close. There might be some kids. It's not, like I said, it's not hard,
right?
And the cards aren't hard to understand. Do you have a kid that like is into the strategy, the whole strategy type of thing? Like I think if you had somebody that was really into chess and they can read fine.
Oh, then they'd love it if they're. Because you're always trying to think turns ahead and
If they're more, if they like the more, I don't know, I guess call it generic, simple stuff.
Oh, abstract or.
Well, maybe even the abstract or I don't know, small world would be pretty simple, like not as much. I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but a little bit.
I'll shake my head and agree.
Okay. Anyways, so I have nothing else to say. Jeb can tell us when we can go to, except looking around this box, when we can go to show you guys components.
It's going to be a 2-player game, so me versus Mickey, and he's got a faction and I got a faction. I'm the demons. I forgot the name of yours.
He doesn't care about what I play.
I don't. He picked it. It's blue. That's why he picked that faction. It's blue. He likes blue. So it's blue versus red.
Who wants to put money on if I can actually beat Jeb in a game? Don't put your money on it.
I will tell you, he lost to me in the practice game that we were learning.
The practice game was ugly.
Yeah.
I rage quit.
So, all right.
Well, it wasn't much rage. I was just like, oh, that's not good.
It's pretty bad.
That didn't happen. In the game, you're going to get to see it's not like that, but you don't know who won yet.
Yeah.
So, anyways, all right. So, Super Giant Box. We will be back in a minute to show you what's in Super Giant Box.
Yep. All right, we're back with the components for the Edge Dawnfall.
And as you can see, we're kind of in a whole table kind of view. So the first thing is, this is the board. So you've got slots for characters, squads on each side. So this would be my side, that would be Mickey's side. You've got a place for your deck, your banner for crystals, and then as you can see, all the hexes. And I think the last thing right here is kind of where the
victory track,
or
whatever it's called. The board is double-sided, just so you know. We chose the side that we're on because most likely this is easier to see the borders than this. This side does look pretty cool, and it would be very easy to use if you wanted to play. However, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
They actually made it interesting where there is a nooks and cranny that you're not allowed to go into.
Ah.
Wow. But yeah, the individual hexes are hard to see in there. Spaces are easy to see. There is like literally nothing in here though. It looks like they're forcing you to teleport or whatever. So anyways, glad we played on, well, we would have noticed that quick. But anyway, so here's the side you play on. Because we didn't notice. And yeah, so there's stuff all over the board already because we didn't totally clean up because it's a lot. I mean, it's actually not as bad as it, like, it doesn't feel as bad as it looks.
Exactly. So, okay, so for game components, the first thing you can see is the board. So let's do some generic components that aren't faction specific.
Yeah.
So the crystal source tokens. So these will be placed on the board during the game.
Right.
So that's where you kind of get crystals from. There is a red and a yellow die that I don't know if
Both
the game
people
always comes with that, or is that
as far as I know.
Okay.
Yep. So you each get a red and a yellow die.
There is a My Turn token, which just tells you it's your turn.
Thanks, Jeb.
Yeah. Victory marker, which is kind of like a red pebble. And what?
Is that a pebble?
Wait, what is it called?
It's like a...
I would call it a damage counter just because I grew up playing Pokemon and they had damage counters like that. So.
I would call it like a red jewel.
Okay.
Or a red stone.
Mickey's got his jewels on the table. Alright. So, next is the charge tokens.
Over here?
Yep.
Those are 10 per faction.
10 per faction. They kind of have it where you can store them per faction in the box.
Yeah.
But it is kind of a general pool.
It's actually nice that they did that, though.
Yeah.
Because you pull the stuff out of the box, you just put it in the pool, and at the end you take 10 and you put them back in. You don't have to get a whole bag out and count 20 each time. I thought it was a nice touch myself.
Next up are the endurance tokens.
That's the little shields?
And you've got the crystal tokens.
These things are honking big.
And then the subsidiary passive tokens, which are these green hourglass things.
They are, in a way, faction specific because not every faction has them, but they are generic also, if that makes any sense.
And then there are subsidiary disabled markers, which we didn't really use.
Right.
And there's these X's, and I think they're used for when something gets disabled, you just put it on top. So we just had them on the side, and we didn't run into
none
it
of our factions utilized that, or none of the cards that we played utilized it, so we were safe from that.
Alright, so that's all the generic stuff. So now we're going to look at the components for a faction. So, Mickey, you want to show them what all the faction stuff comes in?
The factions that we're going to play with are actually kind of scattered around the table right now. So I just want to show you because it's important to the game because they did a nice job with this. Here's what a faction looks like. It comes in this big box, right? And then you pop the box off. Here are all the cards. They left room too where it looks like there's plenty of room to sleeve if you want to. Alright, so in your cards you have all the... I don't know if Jeb was going to do this separately, but here's all the cards.
Squad cards, there's a banner card, a help card, and faction action cards.
So everything that you need for your faction, and there'll be a little bit bigger description when we go through setup on the different cards, but they all go right there. Like I said, it looks like you could easily sleeve that. And then just real quick, so like this is a squad, These guys fell over into the thing. But they actually, most of the time, stay pretty good. They did a nice job with this. Like, this is a faction, this is a...
Squad. Yes. That's
So
a
they
squad.
did-
That's a squad.
They did a nice job with this is its own squad, 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 and these are squads. Models are very easy to tell apart. They didn't make everything look the same. It's pretty easy to notice. Plus the base sizes. I like the containers, and here is all your squad specific tokens to go in. Packs away nicely. Jeb's pointing at me.
Oh,
Go.
I was just going to say, you want to pull out just the shrine token.
Oh, yeah.
It's a giant hex. And if you compare it to one of the crystal sources,
Same
it's
size.
the same size.
Yep, so it fills up a whole space.
And then, oh yeah.
Yep.
And then the other things, every faction has victory point tokens, which are tiny tokens.
Yep.
And then the faction specific tokens. And then a faction token, which is actually used on the main board, which is like a square.
These are the victories. This is the faction token. And then these are the ones that are unique. We can't go into everything that they do, but they all have some unique type of powers.
And then the last thing is the faction sheet itself, which actually gives a background of the faction, some pre-constructed stuff, the components, so if ever things got mixed up, you've got your squad cards, and then on the back is
literally every card
all
that you
the
can build a deck.
cards. Yep.
Really good cheat sheet / character sheets.
Yeah.
Jeb and I had very little questions while we played.
Yeah, there's detailed rules and actually, I think, a tactic guide, so that'll help you out as well.
Yep.
So,
Believe it or not, with as gigantic as that box that you saw, that is it for components.
yep.
It's just, it's just that simple.
All right, so next we're going to do a setup for our game.
Yep.
So let's do this in order. We're determining it's a two-player game, so it's going to be me versus Mickey. We've got the board out. You choose which board you want to use. We chose this one.
I don't know what the other one looks like, if the side is the, like if this is the same. And I also don't know in 4-player, do you see where it looks like they did
where
a
it
half a
connects
hex
it?
there, if they actually connect?
Yeah,
That's kind of interesting.
because then it's just one giant
I
field.
know, right?
Yep.
Maybe if I had a partner, I would win more often.
Yeah, if you had me as the partner.
Damn it.
All right, so after you got the board, give both players their set of dice.
So there's a set for Jeb. Oh, that's my set.
Yep.
Jeb has a set.
I got a set here. Next, you're going to place 20 crystals and 20 charge tokens next to the map. So because this is a two-player game, it's 20 and 20.
Yeah, it is different from multiplayer. Just as an aside note, they really do recommend that you learn how to play two-player before you jump into a multiplayer game, because that's going to give you all the mechanics you need to know without the extra things for multiplayer. And this is the charges that we mentioned earlier that are, you put 10 in each faction box, so you just are ready to go.
All right. Next up is determine the first player. So both players roll the red die. Whoever has the higher number. Oh man, I think that one was mine. The 3.
Which has happened every game, so Jeb gets first player token.
Yep. So I'm just gonna set that there. Next up is choose your factions.
All right, so I am playing the Charter faction, which is, as Jeb made fun of me from earlier, it is the blue faction. Imagine that.
And I'm the demon faction, so I'll be the red
Because
faction.
Jeb's an evil person. But anyways, yeah, so...
And then you collect all the faction-specific stuff, which comes in
Which
your
is
storage.
exactly what I just showed you. Everything for your faction is contained in those boxes.
Minus the sheet, because they
Yeah,
can't
well,
fit
yeah,
that.
honestly, minus the sheet, and of course the generic is outside of that, but we already told you that.
All right. So next you're going to plant your banners.
Okay.
So each faction has a single banner card, and you're going to put it,
And it looks like a banner,
wrong one.
and it's in your it's in your deck. or it's in, in with the cards, right in the box. So.
And it even says, like, mine says Demon Banner because I'm the Demon faction.
Mine says Chapter Banner because I'm the Chapter Banner. So you put it in the banner spot, you're good to go there.
Yep. Next, you will choose your squads. So you can field up to 5 squads, and there are recommended starting squads, which we will do.
Okay, so I don't know if we mentioned it yet, but we will be playing with the constructed recommendations of the first game, or the first game / first time you play, however you want to say it. So, a chapter tells me to the chapter deck, or gosh, I can't talk. Okay, so my chapter faction sheet tells me that I need the Angel of Death, so I'll put the Angel of Death out. I need 2 Holy Knights. I actually have one more Holy Knight in the thing.
Oh, Holy Knight.
And then I get a Ranger and Pilgrims. So that fills up all the slots. Go through your cards, make sure they all say basic mode. Oh, look at that, this is upgrade mode. That's the wrong side, Jeb.
Mickey's cheating on me.
Oh, wait, my Angel of Death says flight mode. That's the wrong side. Okay, now they all say basic mode, so I'm good to go with the cards.
Now I'm in basic mode. I had it wrong.
Okay.
Alright, next you're going to distribute endurance tokens for each of your squads.
Okay, so on your card, I'm going to start going over a little bit of card stuff now here. On your card, you have a shield on each card. The shield part is actually the same on both sides.
Yep.
So you don't have to worry about that. That's how many of these gray tokens you put. And they actually made the board so they fit on the side instead of on the card, which was fantastic. At least I thought it was.
It is.
Jeb actually pointed that out to me while we were playing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's genius.
The only problem I had once was when I was looking on your side of the board, and I couldn't... It took me a second to figure out which shield went with who.
Yeah, I did that. I was doing that on yours too. You gotta look for a second and be like, okay, is it?
Yeah.
Which way is it going on the board to know which card it's with? But that's
It's so minor.
Yeah, it's very minor.
I forgot that we need to put the figures on the cards as well, so it's not...
It's part of the card setup,
Right.
so okay,
Yeah.
we did it backwards. Big deal. It's gonna happen. It's not the end of the world here. They did a really good job of, at least, well, Jeb has one that he wasn't thrilled with. I thought they did a good job of being able to tell the figure matches the picture on the card,
Right.
which is kind of cool. And yes, if there's multiple figures, they all go on the same card. That's another part of the card that I did not mention. So real quick, those are your stats, which we'll get up into later. But over the endurance figure, which is the shield, there are dots. The dots indicate how many models go in that squad. So you'll always know how many are supposed to be sitting there at the beginning of the game.
Right. Alright, so next up is preparing your action decks. So the game recommends, I guess, 25 for a pre-constructed starting deck.
Yeah.
So we just grabbed those, shuffled the deck, and
Right.
placed it on the action deck spot.
Right. We're not going to tell you everything that the sheet said to put in because it really doesn't matter. You just need to know right now that it's 25 cards.
Yep. Next you're going to choose the positioning player and the countering player. So since I'm the first player, I got the first player token. I get to choose. So what was your example? It's like...
It's kind of like the coin flip in a football
Coin
game.
flip,
So
yeah.
in the football game, you flip the coin. Whoever wins the coin toss gets to decide, do they want to receive or do they want to pick their side of the field?
Right.
So it's kind of the same thing. Jeb's going to decide if he wants to go first in the game or if he would like to be able to put his models on the board first.
I'm going to put on the board first. So
All right.
I'm positioning, Mickey is countering. Alright, next is placing your shrines. So each faction has one shrine that they get to place on the board. The shrines have to be placed at least 2 spaces from each other. And they have to fit on the hex. You can't... We'll just say it now. You can never put anything across the hex.
Ever, ever, ever.
Right. So we'll just say it now so we don't have to say it every time.
Right.
So The book actually has a recommended location for first-time players.
Is it?
So,
Is that me or is this me?
I think that's me.
Is that me? Or is it this?
That's not me.
Or is it this?
That's me. Yours is right next to that one.
I feel like I didn't have it there before.
Yeah, that's where it was.
Okay.
Alright, so we placed those, and now it says to place the crystal sources. So there's 4 of them. And the book also has a recommendation for where those get placed.
And we will be playing where they recommend to put them.
Yep, so one there.
Now again, this is going to change the game immensely when you start putting it wherever you want.
There. And then 2 down, 1 here. And then...
Something back here, right?
Yeah, right here. I think that's where they go. That
Is
might
it that
be...
close to the edge? Okay.
Nope, sorry, one
Over
off.
here?
Yep. Alright, so that's where we have the shrines and what the book recommends. Next, you are going to deploy your models. And what's going to happen is, starting with the positioning player, I will choose one squad to deploy. And when I deploy, I can place them on the board, except there's a few rules. So one of them is you cannot put it adjacent to any of the shrines or crystal sources. So let's say I pick my big guy first, and let's see, can I put it there, Mickey?
No, sir, you're touching.
Here?
No, sir, you're touching.
How about over here?
Absolutely, all the way on my side of the board.
That's scary. I'm going to go up here.
Actually, in this game, it's not that scary.
Yeah.
Really.
Depends on where I put other stuff. So.
Exactly. Okay, so Jeb goes over there. We're going to redo this when we start to play, so if we don't put the things exactly the same, you'll know what that we did start over. So just so I can show you another example, when you place a squad with multiples, you do all of them at the same time. There is a little bit different rule with this. So the rule with multiple figures, you still have to put them in one space. They still can't be adjacent to a source or a shrine, but you have to keep them in base-to-base contact with each other as you place. So I'm going to put one in this space, and then I'm going to... This is a separate model, so I can go into another space, because I'm not overlapping, and it's still in base-to-base contact. And then I'm just going to run them in a straight line, because for no particular reason, right across that. And I can guarantee you I wouldn't do that in a regular game, but I wanted to see you I wanted to show you how what it looked like in base-to-base contact. And the fact is that I did cross a line, but it's because I didn't break the rules of overlapping. This guy's on one space, this guy's on another space, and they're in base-base contact. This is not one base.
Alright, so back to me. I will pick my Master of Elements, and I want to put him right here, Mickey.
Why?
I can't. I thought that's what you were going to say. Because we didn't
Let
say...
it crush me like a grape.
No, because you're not allowed to place them adjacent to enemy models as well. I don't think we said that.
It's a good point. Because there was nothing on the board to say it yet with.
Right. So I can't place it adjacent to Mickey's stuff. However, I could put it adjacent to my own guy, because I'm not an enemy to myself. Well, sometimes.
True.
Alright, so I picked my squad, so we go back and forth, so if you want to place...
I'll put my Angel of Death out.
I'll put this guy right here.
Yeah. Notice how Jeb just did a three hex one. I don't have any 3 hexes. Mine are just 1. So I'll go down on Jeb's side of the board there. Put me way down there. Yeah, sure.
Alright, then I'll trade you for that guy.
Okay. Yeah, then I'll go over there. Yeah,
And
that's cool.
I will do a conga line right here.
Then I have Rangers, and remember, not adjacent. I can't be base to base, but I can be in a space that's adjacent to it, so to speak. I just can't be here, so I can go right in the middle there. And then my other Ranger has to go in base to base. Oh my gosh, this is the worst strategy ever. So anyhow, that's all mine. That should be all Jeb's.
Yep, so everything's been deployed. So next we are going to place the victory marker and the faction tokens. So both faction, or all factions, have this square faction token. You're going to place it over the blue circle on your end of the victory track, and then you'll place the victory marker in the center. Alright, next you're going to prepare your crystal pools. So each player is going to take 2 crystals from the neutral pile, which we set up earlier, that has 20 crystals, and place them into your crystal pool. So I've got 2, and I'm going to put it in my pool here. Mickey's going to take 2. Special pick.
I'm being jabbed so hard.
Alright. And then next, we are going to draw our starting hands, which is 3 cards from your action deck. And do notice that you draw your cards after everything is placed, so you can't really strategize with what's in your hand.
Also, if we didn't say it yet, or at least from when we were going through components and stuff, components are finite in this game. Your personal components are finite. These components in the supply are finite, which makes this very interesting.
And then let's quickly go over the board map. I'm going to name some terms and you can point out what they are.
Okay.
A space.
Okay, a space is the whole
large hex.
Large, yeah.
Group of hexes.
Group of hexes, yeah.
7 hexes.
Yeah, the big, I was trying to think of what these are called, but anyhow, you'll notice it by the thicker lines, so that everything in the thicker lines counts as, it's just one space. So 1, this is a space, that's a space, that's a space. So if they use the term space, boom.
Yep. Hex, which...
Hex is the individual hexes in the space.
Squad card slots, we kind of know what those are.
That's these on your board.
Enhancement zone.
Enhancement zone is just literally right under your squads. Each squad can have a total of 2 enhancements.
Yep. Action deck.
Action deck is where you draw from.
Discard pile.
Somewhere. I don't know where
we just
recommend
placed it off the board.
Yeah, we just did it off the board.
Banner slot.
Banner slots right here.
Crystal pool.
Crystal pool. This is these crystal are ready.
And then depleted pool.
And this is the depleted pool where there is nothing yet. So they're bright and shiny here and they're grayed out over there.
Alright, so that's everything for setup.
At this point, you're ready to start playing. There's kind of a couple things as soon as we start to play that are almost like setup, so to speak. So this is, hey, you're ready to go. And now what happens, Jeb?
Alright, so when you start the match, the first thing is dispersal. The positioning player may now move one of their squads. Right. So I'm the positioning, which we decided earlier, so I can pick any one of my squads and be like, well, I get a movement of that whole squad. Right. So I think that guy's way too far, and unfortunately he can only move 1, so let's bring him 1 closer to your guys. Yep, right, and I can actually place him in any formation within the space.
Right, so when we get to, we'll start elaborating on movement now that we've showed you setup. When we start going through the game, we're going to break down the turns and we'll get into a little bit of the finer mechanics of movement and your stats and combat and all that kind of thing.
Alright, so after the dispersal, the next thing is the
first turn.
The countering player takes the first turn, and from there on out, it's just alternating between the players.
Right.
So there's 2 big things you can do, or you have 2 options for your turn, and it's called either an active turn or a passive turn.
Right.
So we'll be going through both of those to give you an idea of what you can do on your turn.
Right.
Alright, so it's Mickey's turn right now, so say he does an active turn, or he chooses to do an active turn. What he can do is play cards, use his banner, or activate one of his squads. So he has some choices of things he can do. Alright.
Yep. So, you have your hand of cards, which is 3. So I guess it's a good time to go over a little bit of the cards here. Alright, so all the cards, they look similar. All the cards have a top and a bottom.
There's a cost
a
for
cost.
the top.
This one happens to be in the crystals, and this one, because it's an enhancement, happens to have cost in a charge. So the top part of the card does something. Usually it's kind of generic, so you can just use it for anything. However, there's usually where a line here, it may say specific, so that only applies to a particular squad on the board, and then you'll read exactly what it does. Now, we can't possibly go over all the cards with you, so all we can do is basically show you the basics on how it works. So if I was going to play this card, I would either pay 1 crystal to do the top part, which this one happens to say defense. One of my models gains +2 on a defensive roll. Notice this little white edge here with a lightning bolt. That means it's an instant. So that means I can play it whenever, as long as it meets the criteria for the what it says in the text.
And that one would usually be when you're defending.
When I'm defending, of course. And then the second part says my holy knight, and then it costs 0, so I can just do it. And then I would activate the holy knight, and then do whatever it would not activate. I would just play it on a holy knight and do whatever this said. It's very specific. Activate is totally different than playing a card.
And you don't get both of the effects on the card. You choose
right.
one
You
of them.
choose one or the other.
Yep.
Okay, so that's pretty much one of the standard cards. Be very careful to pay attention to these white things, because they could be down here too, and this could be nothing. So that lightning bolt white frame means that it's basically an instant. If you're familiar with terms of Magic, I can just play this whenever, if the situation is appropriate.
Right.
So the other type of card is a enhancement for your squads. Notice the difference, that it uses charges. Those are these. And that it has a cost to a different type of cost to get it into play. It just has a little little bar up here, and this one says pay 1 crystal, attach it, and then immediately charge it with 1. So in this case, I would pay 1 crystal,
and
deplete
when you pay
it.
for it, you move the
Yep, the crystal goes from ready to depleted, and then I would put this under one of my squads. Now, very similar to the basic other card I showed you, there's a top part that's pretty much you could put it on any squad and it would do something.
Right.
The bottom part is specific to a certain squad, so you need to decide how you want to play it, because this could be really good on another model too, and you might not need this, and the cost could be different too. Like the top cost in this case is higher than the specific one for the this one's the Holy Knight again, but it could be reversed. The cost for the Holy Knight one might be more than this generic one, so that could play on where you put it. And I think those are literally the only 2 types of cards that you'll see.
Yeah, it's only enhancements and then just plain.
And then just playing cards. So that's the important part to realize. We just went over it real quick. Paying with a crystal, you move it from the ready to the depleted. And an important thing to know about paying for things is that these endurance markers can be spent as a crystal, as well as once you start earning victory points, you can get rid of a victory point and use it as a crystal too. So there's other ways that you can pay for these cards and actions that you do during the game. However, remember, if you're going to spend victory points to do a crystal, then you're getting rid of a victory point. And if you give away your endurance shields, then you're making, well, not really making them weaker, but you're making them
Closer
more
to dying.
susceptible to taking a hit,
Yeah.
right? I mean, to being able to withstand taking a wound. So that's literally all you do when you play cards. It's just, you got to read them and decide how it affects your situation.
And the cards can be played pretty much any time during your turn, except, I guess, during an attack. Like when you're resolving something, you can't just straight up play it.
Right. So
after... one thing you can do is play the cards. Another thing is activating a squad. So on your turn, you're going to pick one of your squads and activate them.
Okay. And remember, your squads are represented by the cards on here, and it tells you how many models you have in a squad. So when you activate the squad, you are activating all the models in that squad at the same time. And this is mostly, well, I won't say mostly, but like a bigger part of it is because of movement. So like if I activate pilgrims, I get to move each one of these models up to the movement of the card. My movement on a pilgrim's 2, so I can move this guy 2, I can move this guy 2, I can move this guy 2, and I can move that guy 2. Or I can choose to leave one of them, or how I can break it up however I want. However, when I activate, I also get a chance to attack. Each model in the squad would also get to perform attack if they wanted to. So that's an important thing to remember when you're activating. It's all of the models get to do
A move and an activate.
a move and attack if they want to in an activation. Now there are some cards that just say select one model out of a squad to do stuff, but that's from playing a card, so that kind of gives you a little bit of extra. So
there's a couple things when you activate a squad. The move and the attack, you have to do all your moves and then all your attacks, or the other way around. Right. All your attacks and then all your moves. You
can't partially move, attack, and then move and move away.
Right.
Now there are move cards.
Yes, there are move cards.
So you could theoretically have two movements, so to speak,
right.
But it's not from the activation.
And it's also, you can't have him move and attack, and then this guy attack and then move and all that kind of stuff.
So let's talk about movement.
Well,
okay.
The other thing that we didn't mention is when you choose the squad to activate, you have to choose whether or not you're going to change their mode before you do anything.
Right.
So when you pick a squad, the first thing you're going to ask yourself, do I want to flip their card over or not?
Okay.
And then there's also some cards that actually cost to flip over, so it's can I pay to flip them?
Right. So the only cards on the board that have the pay to flip are these Holy Knights on my squad. So you can see the crystal down on the flipping symbol. That means in order to flip him to that side, I'd have to spend 2 crystals to do that. However, I do have a built-in ability with my banner that lets me change a squad for free by flipping the banner. So.
And some of the squads, when they flip, there's benefits, there's downsides. Some cards need for the squad to be in a certain mode. Yep. So that's kind of why, if you're asking why do you care about flipping, like that's what the flipping would be for.
It's very, very strategic in the game. And like Jeb said, there are trade-offs when you flip. Like something becomes better and then something else becomes worse.
Right.
So you need to be aware of that when you're doing it. So let's see. So then
after you activate a squad, so Mickey hasn't activated one yet, but say he did, the last thing you would do on your turn is you get to choose, or if you want, you can discard one card from your hand, and then both players will draw back up to 3 cards. So that's what an active turn consists of. So Mickey will show you, I guess he'll do an active turn right now and then include some movement and attacking.
Yeah. So, alright. So, let's go over the pilgrims just because there's a lot of figures to play around with. So let's start by playing a card, just because I can. And I'll do an enhancement. This enhancement works on a Holy Knight, so...
So even though he's not activating, or
Right.
even though he's not activating the Holy Knights, he can still play a card
on the Holy Knight if I want to. Or if I had a card that let the Holy Knight do something, I could do that, and that's still not an activation. But this is an enhancement, so I'll just pick this Holy Knight. It says, spend a crystal, attach it, and charge it by 1. So that's it. That's how you play that card. Then I will choose to go ahead and activate the pilgrims. Alright, so in getting crystals is a big part of the game because it's your resource, and you have to be adjacent to one of these things to get it. Now, we haven't got that far, but we're just telling you have to do that. So I'm going to try to start moving these guys around to get there. So movement works like this, and I'm going to move one of these guys.
Before you do that, are you going to flip their
I'm
card?
not going to flip the card.
Okay.
Alright, so I'm going to move this just so you can see, so they're not grouped up. But let's pretend I'm starting here. So my pilgrims have a movement of 2. Spaces are what you count. And remember, this big clump of 7 hexes is a space. So to move 2, 1, 2. 1, 2.
And you can pick any hex within that space to move into.
If there's an enemy there, I can go, as long as I can get my base into a free spot, I can go through it. So I can pretend stop there for a second, 1, 2. Or I could actually go in, if I wanted to initiate combat with him, I can go in there, and in that case I can stop. But moving through, as long as you can put your base on it, then you can move through it. There, I don't have an example of not being able to move.
Yeah, I was trying to look, but the best I could think of is, like, pretend this was blue. If this moved here, there's no way to fit this triangle into that, so it wouldn't be able to.
Right.
I don't even remember where I had that. I guess here.
Okay, so the last thing about movement is if you're already in a space and you just want to slide over, that counts as 1 even though you didn't move out of the original space. So for instance, I can move, I'm going to go ahead and slide that guy down. That's 1 for that guy, and then this guy's going to move 1 space, but he goes all the way over there because I can pick any of the hexes in there when I move to a space. And then this guy, well, let's just get him moving somewhere. We'll go,
Next.
what?
I was going to say put a dude next to an enemy, and we can show him attacking.
Okay. 1, 2. I'll go in base contact with that. And that shrine's kind of important too, so I'll just move 1 and be base to base with that. Because usually, always your shrine does something for you. Whether or not you have to be touching it, that's a different story. But, alright, so I dispersed everybody in the squad, and now I have the opportunity to attack if I want to. None of these pilgrims have range, so I'm not going to be able to shoot anybody, so I have to be in base-to-base contact. That's what being basically, well, I won't say adjacent, but that's how the combat works in this game, unless you have something with range, which works a little bit different. Alright, so how does attacking work? So attacking, Jeb's going to start to explain.
Okay, so when combat is initiated, you are going to follow the combat sequence. So the first thing is to compare the initiative attributes of both models that are involved in the attack.
Okay, the initiative is the very top well, I'll go down this because I don't really think we talked exactly what they were. But your statistics or your attributes on your card. So the top blue one is the initiative. The red one is attack. The green one is defense. And the bottom one, the brown one, is your movement. So we're going to compare top initiative numbers. And I have a 2. Jeb, what does your monster have?
A 4.
So in this game, a higher initiative is what goes first.
Yes. So as you can see, Mickey was the one who initiated combat. However, the attacker turns out to be me because of the higher initiative. So we figured out who was the attacker, which is me. It's me because of the initiative. Then the player who is the attacker gets to choose what die to roll. So I could choose the yellow as kind of the default rolling, and then if I wanted to, I could pay 1 crystal to roll the red die instead, which is a more powerful, or it's got higher numbers. And
there are 2 zeros on the yellow die, no zeros on the red die.
Yeah. So just for heck of it, I'm not going to pay. I'm just going to roll the yellow die. So I am going to go ahead and roll it. So I got a 0.
But it has a cog around it, Jeb. What does that mean?
Alright, so if there's a cog on the yellow die, when you roll it, or on your result, you can pay a crystal to re-roll it. So I'm going to do that. And now I'm at a 4.
Wow.
So the die result is a 4, and if I look at my Gorehound, he has a +3 to that attack. So that's a total of 7. Wow, that's actually a really good attack.
That's ridiculous.
So I'm at a 7 attack, and now Mickey, who's the defender, gets to choose which die he wants to use or to roll for his defense.
Okay, so this is looking not to be a very wise combat situation here. So my defense is a 1. And I know the red the red die is a straight up D6. It's a 1 through 6. And the 1 and 2 have the cogs on it. So at this point, I have to tie Jeb. So I have to get a 5 or a 6 on the red die to do anything. So let's just try. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my crystal. I'm going to roll the red die. And I got a 2, but I got the cog, so I'm going to go ahead and re-roll.
Now, with the way the rulebook says is with the red die, you've already paid your crystal, so you get 1 free re-roll on it.
On a cog.
On a cog, yes.
And I got the 6.
You got a 6.
So 6 plus 1 is a 7, so my 7 defense is higher than Jeb's attack of 7. I mean, the same. Sorry.
It's the same, yes.
Yes.
But in this case, the ties go to the defender.
Yeah.
So my attack is unsuccessful. If it was successful, it would have done a wound to Mickey. And when a wound happens, you will...
You look at your squad,
Yep.
and you say, do I have any endurance tokens? And if you do, you take an endurance token off.
Right. If you don't have any endurance tokens, then that model is removed from the board.
That's correct.
And then when you defeat a model, you get victory points equal to what's in the shield number.
On your card.
And then this would move however many spaces. So if I got it, I would move it this way. If Mickey defeated one of my guys, it would move closer to his.
So now, this is...
One other thing I was going to say really quick was when I got that 0 cog, I paid a crystal to re-roll it. If you have 2 options, you can either pay a crystal to re-roll it, or if you had a depleted crystal, you could undeplete it, and then you're stuck with the 0 result. If I re-rolled it after paying, and I got a 0 again, I can't re-roll anymore. You're only allowed 1 re-roll on a die.
So he'd get his crystal
So
back.
I would get the crystal back. Yes. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah,
So.
that's very important. Okay, now another key part, this has actually worked out really well because you're going to get to see one more part of the act. So hopefully you realize that if Jeb had won that combat, I would have gotten rid of this. If this endurance token wasn't on a pilgrim, that pilgrim dies. However, in this case, I successfully defended. And remember, even though I initiated everything that was going on here, Jeb is actually the attacker. So I defended. I successfully defended. If you successfully defend, you get to do a counterattack.
It is optional, but
it is
because certain
optional.
Cases you might not want to.
But that's kind of how the game works in terms of like if you're a squad that basically has very low initiative going up against another squad, you gotta hope to be a good defensive thing so you at least get a turn to hit.
Yep.
So it worked out in my favor. So now I get to roll that. Jeb will still get to do a defensive roll, but there won't be any counterattack after that. So
correct.
All right, I'm gonna try to. These guys are awful. So, oh crap! I don't have anything to use to get the red die, do I, Jeb?
Oh, you've got other things.
Oh, okay. All right. So, if you remember, you can use these endurance shields the same as a crystal, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to take it off my Angel of Death, even though he's my giant model, because I actually have an ability that, in theory, can get these back. It's not an automatic, but I do have that ability, so I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to take the red die. I'm going to roll it. I'm going to get a 4. I like a 4. I'm going to stick with a 4. I have a base attack, a 1. I don't know what his defense on his lions are.
It's a +1, so what was your total? A 5?
Yep.
Well, I don't feel lucky with yellow, so I'm going to roll the red.
Alright.
I got a 5.
You got a 5. Alright, so that's it.
If Mickey's attack was higher, yep, I would have been the one to get rid of a endurance token, or if it wasn't there, it would have been removed from the board.
Right. So you actually saw 2 ties. I tied, and then Jeb tied. But remember, if we back it up and say that Jeb didn't roll that or rolled the yellow die instead or whatever, he would have lost an endurance token. It's just really important to remember once these don't have endurance tokens, that's when models start to come off the board.
And also, if a combat is initiated and the attacker does damage, it does a wound to the defender, then there is no counterattack. It ends.
Right, yeah. A counterattack only happens with a successful defense.
Right.
Or if you have shenanigans in your deck that allows for one. So important to remember when a model dies, look at the shield. That's your victory point.
So
you literally take a victory point token, put it off to somewhere where you're going to remember that you have it, because it's a victory point token and it's economy. And then this slides. We're just going to say I won a battle.
Yep.
It goes that way. I know nobody won a battle, but that's how that works. Okay?
A couple things for combat. One thing is a term called backstab. And there's certain cards that actually initiate a backstab. And what that is, it's a regular combat sequence, except the enemy automatically loses the initiative check, and they cannot counterattack.
Yep.
So it's basically, you're sneaking up on someone, and you do an attack. All they can do is roll defense.
Right.
And that's it for that whole combat sequence.
Yep. That's a pretty powerful one.
And then the other thing to talk about is shooting.
Okay.
So there are some magical attacks. I think Mickey has the ranger who shoots whatever.
Yeah. They just have a card that says shoot, but they have like crossbows in their hand. That's probably mystical crossbows or something. Regardless, we're going to show you. We'll use the rangers since they actually do it in the game. So there's a couple things that you have to do when you shoot, and the first thing is we'll talk about line of sight. So line of sight in this game is literally a straight line up to whatever the range is. The card that has the ranged ability to tell you how far it can go, and then you count spaces. So from this guy right here, he can go this way. He can go he can go only this far because that's got something in it. He can go that way,
He can hit this, but he can't go past. If there was something back here, he couldn't go for it.
Right.
This is in the way.
And then he hits. So I think you guys are getting the picture. That way, but that's blocked. This way, he can go all the way off the board. I mean, up to his range, and then he can go that way. So none of these, like, you can't. It's not like
you don't go from your hex in that direction. And it's your whole space.
It's your whole space, and there's literally no, like, some games are from the middle to the middle of anything, and if you cross it, and there's none of that shenanigan. It's literally a straight line from your space. So there's, on each hex, there's 1, right, 2, 3, 4, right, 5, 1, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is.
6 different directions.
Six directions potentially you can go in, okay? So that's line of sight, and you just go, and you can, is there anything I missed about line of sight?
So there's things, the card that you play to do the ranged attack, it'll either give you line of fire, which is looking line of sight, or it'll have range requirements. So it's whatever the card says is what you need to do. So you're correct. It is, you can go as far as you can if there's no range on it, and you can't go through the shrines or the crystal, whatever, deposits.
Yeah. Okay, so, and then, of course, you would pick a target unless the card told you could have multiple, etc., etc. That's kind of straightforward in card. And then the difference in the range / shooting attack is that you do a hit check, okay? And this is basically replacing the combat action, so to speak.
Right.
Like, this is ranged instead of melee, however you want to say it. So what you do with that is same as combat. Let's pretend one of these. Let's pretend that this guy is going to shoot the Jeb's beast over there. This guy. So I have the line of sight. Now I have to, just like in regular combat, choose a die. Do I want to roll the yellow one, and do I want to roll the red one? However, this time, where all I'm trying to do is get greater than his initiative.
Right. So my initiative is 4, so Mickey's looking for a 5 or higher.
That's correct. So I really want to roll the red die, because I'm not adding anything to my roll.
And I'm not even getting a defense roll.
Right.
It's literally Mickey is rolling to check to hit.
Right. And if you'll notice, you probably won't notice, but on the cards, on your squad cards, initiative and movement don't have pluses in front of them. So they're not adding to anything. So I will, I'll pretend that I paid for this, Jeb, and I'll roll the red die. And I'll just pay another shield off that guy. And, I got a 2. That's not enough to do it, so I'm going to use the reroll on this. And I got a 4. So all I did was tie him. Yep. So I whiffed. I missed it. But, oh no, I didn't get a cog. I was looking at the yellow. If I would have got a cog, I would have got a crystal back.
Right. Now, if I say my Gorehound was on his other side where he only has a 2 initiative, if Mickey rolled that 4, that's greater than the 2. Right. So that means the hit is successful. And the card will actually say effect, and then it'll say what the effect is for succeeding. And
so far what we've seen is it's usually a wound. Well,
some of my stuff had status effects as well.
Okay.
But yeah, Mickey.
So my cards that I played with did have the effect was a wound. So
yep. So if he got wounded, I would look. He's got a shield that would come off.
Right.
If he didn't have it, he's dead.
Right. I just as an aside, because like we were telling you, like your initiative doesn't have anything to add to. The Rangers in their other form, their movement stat goes away. It's basically like they're on the ground aiming, right? And that's really what it's called, aim. So they can't.
You can flip their card over.
They're like taking aim, so to speak. So they have no attack stat. So that means, like, if somebody came over, they wouldn't.
There's no attack and no movement.
Right. So they can't. They're like crouched down or laying down or whatever. However, that actually adds a +2 to your roll. So.
But that's what the card says.
Yeah, that's what the card said. I was just telling. I was just giving an example of how a different form added to being able to have a starting point, so to speak, I guess.
Yeah, and that's one thing I wanted to just reiterate is that these Rangers, they can make melee attacks. So if he was in melee, he could just roll a die and add his modifier to it. Right. But Mickey actually has a card in his deck that says shot, and it says perform the ranged thing. So it's not, they cannot inherently do ranged attacks. You have to use a card to do that.
And just, Jeb brings up another point. When they're in this and it says +0, yes, I can do an attack even though I have nothing to add to it. If I'm on this side, those dashes are not a +0. You literally cannot take the attack action, and I literally can't do the move action. Now, I can't, I think cards can still get around that though, right?
I don't think so.
Oh,
because if it said move a squad and he doesn't have a movement,
then it does, and then it goes away. I can't remember.
Okay.
So that was basically an example of
activating the squad.
Was the shooting.
Oh,
well,
okay.
I mean, we just went the shooting part of the attack phase, or a ranged anything.
Right.
I haven't played with we only played with 2 squads so far, so we have no idea if anybody has an inherent range thing, but everything we've seen so far that was distance shooting was card generated. Right. So yeah.
We were doing an example of a turn, so Mickey had activated the Pilgrims, so they moved, they did the attack, and then now he's going to do his end of turn stuff if he doesn't have any cards he wants
and I play, and I have, I don't have anything else I want to play right now, so yeah, I'm gonna, last thing I can do is, I'll redraw cards, but first I'm allowed to discard one if I want to.
Yep.
So I'm going to discard a card so that I can dig through my deck a little more, looking for special things.
And now if I had discarded a card in whatever on Mickey's turn, I would actually get to draw up to 3 as well. So I didn't do that. So.
And that's another, I thought, pretty unique part of the game. You don't get hosed playing defense. You do not get hosed playing defense in this game, which is really cool.
And then one quick thing that we didn't mention on your active turn, when you're moving, the base size, when you're moving through, there's a thing called push. So you can actually push models of smaller bases is it as you're moving, or is it in the final move spot?
It's in the final move spot, and your base. So here's the rules for that. When you're moving and the space that you land on has a figure, and your figure moving in, the base is larger.
So, for him, let's say he could move 7, because that's what his astral mode is. So, well, that's a bad one because he has an effect. So I'm just going to put it here. He can move 1 normally. So his 1 movement, he goes in this hex, and there's no place to actually fit him, right?
Right.
But since he's landing there, he can push people. So I just have to figure out the 3.
And the reason he can is because this is a 1 base, this is a 1 base, he has a 3 base.
3 base.
So he is bigger than both of those models, so he can push them all out.
Yep, so I can pick which 3 I want to occupy, and just because I can, I'm going to occupy the 2 that they're on, plus this one here. So what's going to happen is, I take them and put him where they were, and then now I can choose where to put these guys, where to push them.
Right.
And that is any place adjacent to where my base is.
Yeah.
So I could go here, 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 all around me. So I'm going to put 1 here, and I'll put 1 over here, just to split them up.
Yep. So that's pushing. And of course, the big guy can push everybody out. He just can't push another big guy out. Can't push people off the board.
Right.
and you can't push people into, like, you can never, again, go over a partial line.
Like, if I landed here and pushed this guy, I couldn't put him like that, because that's across 2 spaces. I would have to put him either there or there, or however it's situated.
And in a case where you try to move in and you're not able to push all the models onto a legal pushed space, then you can't make the move.
Okay.
One other thing you can do on your active turn is use your chapter or your banner for your faction. And so my banner has restore 1 endurance token to the Angel of Death, which means I can take one of these and put it back on it, up to its maximum, obviously, or change mode of 1 chapter squad card. So that's really huge for me, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to flip this, and it lets me change the mode, and I'm going to do Holy Knight, because Holy Knight costs me money to flip them normally, so I'm going to flip that for free. And that's the, that doesn't have to be done at the end of the turn. It can be done any time.
Middle,
it was just we had remembered the other thing you could do. Anyhow.
All right, so Mickey ended his turn, so he passes the first or the active player token to me. Pretend I did something and I ended my turn, and it passes back to Mickey. So Mickey, what are you going to do this turn?
All right, this time I'm going to take a passive turn, which is the only other thing you can do in this game.
That's not an active turn. Yeah.
All right, that's not an active turn. All right, so on a passive turn, what you do is you harvest. You get to gather 1 crystal for each controlled crystal source. Okay, what does controlled mean in this game? So controlled is being adjacent to the crystal source. So adjacent, right up, or base-to-base contact, I should say. Got to remember to use that, because technically that's an adjacent space, but I got to be in base-to-base, and there can be no enemies. So no enemies.
I'm going to pretend there's a guy here.
Okay, Jeb's going to pretend.
Yeah.
All right.
If you can see that, I don't know, this angel with his wings is pretty tall.
Yeah.
I'm going to move him over here.
Jeb's moving him around.
So they can
and giving me another one. I like it.
Oh yeah, that's true. All right.
All right. But I reiterated no enemies because this is not a game where it's majority control. Right. It's literally none. So even if I had... I'm not going to get a crystal from this because Jeb is contending that. And even if I had another guy standing here, doesn't matter. Right. There's at least 1 enemy. Alright, so the open ones I have. This guy, I totally control. So I get a crystal from the bank. My Jeb was nice enough to move my Death Angel over there. Guess what? He has no enemies behind that. So I get one from that one too. And then this, nobody controls it. Jeb has a special power with his, but nobody controls it.
And it's only Mickey checking his people. So
right.
Even if my guy was here, if Mickey harvested, I wouldn't
get anything yet. So
this counts as a crystal source, by the way. So that's why I pointed that.
That's special though for his faction. So I get the crystals. They go into the ready crystal thing.
Right.
And then the next thing I do is I charge all my enhancements by 1. I have 1 enhancement that I played on my turn, so I get to charge it.
So if he had like 6 of them on his side attached to people,
I get 1 for everything.
Yep.
And then, except for enhancements on dead squads, because this game does say keep your stuff out. We've seen at least 1 resurrection card so far, so important to note, but you don't get to charge those. And then refresh your crystals, so all the depleted crystals come back into my pot, and then I get to refresh my banner card. Alright, so I've gone all the way down the passive turn. Notice I wasn't able to use any cards. That's not an option.
Yep.
I don't do a draw up phase. It's not an option. I don't do a discard phase. It's not an option. That's literally all I do on my turn. Even if I have cards that let me operate certain models, this is not a play card phase at all. It's kind of like a rest phase, even though they call it the passive turn. You're kind of resting. I guess you're doing a little bit of work by mining crystals,
Right.
but for the most part, you're kind of taking a break from all the battle and trying to get all freshened up to go beat up on some Jeb.
Yeah.
So, so that's it. And then we would pass the token again, and Jeb would either take an active turn or a passive turn, and we would keep going back and forth like that until end game.
Yep. And before I talk about end game real quick, there's a thing on the attachment or enhancement cards
Yep.
that involve passive abilities.
Yep.
Which on the card there's actually a green hourglass token, which is represented what Mickey's showing. The way this works is, say I had this attached to one of my to Sonic Keeper, which is who it has to be attached to. When I take the passive turn, I would place one of the charges on it as normal, and then say I did 2 more passive turns after that, so now I have 3. Well, this has a 3 next to the symbol with the hourglass, so on my active turn I can pay the cost, which is 3, to put an hourglass onto it. So I take the hourglass token and put it on, and that means I've unlocked this ability that is now active
All the time.
all the time. I don't have to pay for it at all. So I know Mickey has some cards like that as well.
Yep. Yep,
so-
but some of the factions don't have the
Right.
passive thing, so they actually have no cards that would use them. But just remember that it is optional though, because remember that card still has 2 abilities.
Yeah, so if I had this attached...
Maybe Jeb was desperate, and I'm like, I gotta spend a charge right now to do that top one, and he might need to wait another turn before he gets that passive going.
And then even after I've unlocked the passive, if I take another passive turn, I get a charge that I can still use to spend on the top part.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
just wanted to say that.
Yep.
So I think we're at end game now, right?
Yeah, so again, we go back and forth until something triggers end game. And so the biggest battle-wise the game ends is one person wipes out all the models of the other person.
Yep.
Even if it's for a split second, that's the end of the game.
Yep. And what happened? Who's the winner in that case?
Whoever doesn't have any models on the board whoever still has models on the board.
Right.
Whoever did the wiping out wins.
Yes. So they just automatically win.
Yes.
So you don't care about any victory point stuff. The next way to end the game is if the victory marker reaches the end of the victory track. So you probably noticed us moving this back and forth when we were killing things. What happens is if this ever lands on one of the players' tokens, then that ends,
you finish the turn.
You finish the turn, and then you count victory points to see whoever has the most victory points wins. So even if you're the one to trigger that, if you don't have enough victory points,
you don't win.
Right.
And this is kind of this track is kind of interesting in this game because over here you're kind of playing a tug of war.
Right.
But these are your solid victory points. Even though that kind of represents a victory point,
Right.
It's like, well, I'm getting these things, and there's like a tug of war going on over here, which is very interesting also because if you remember, I told you that you could use victory points to spend as crystals also. So there's some very interesting economy as well as how you're tracking who's winning the game, so to speak.
Right. And then the last ending condition of the game is if any action deck is depleted. Yeah. And how do you determine a winner when that happens?
Again, it's you finish the turn, and then it's whoever has the most victory points.
Yep. So I think we've covered.
And I can't with the empty deck thing. Is it literally the second that it's empty, or is it like one of those things where you went to draw and then it's empty? So in other words, if it was the end of my turn...
If they drew the last card from their deck, play the current player's turn to its end. So once
Okay,
you draw that last
so
card...
like I could literally end the game on my turn if I drew my last card, right?
Yeah, if you had 2 cards in your hand and you had to draw up to 3 and you drew the last card, that's over.
Right. So there's no rounds in this, so it's not like make sure that the person gets one more turn. So you'll notice that the second 2 options, the either running out of cards or the tracker there, are based on victory points, and then the other method doesn't care about victory points at all. It's just like, haha, you can't do anything. I do kind of feel like that might have been a lot. We hope that we gave you the basics and that you could see stuff. Maybe you have to rewind a little bit to, take in the movement or whatever. But as we say in almost all our games, and I'm going to up this one a little bit. Usually I say just watch like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
I would say watch 15 to 20 minutes of this at least. You'll get to hear about some of the cards and us spending the economy in some different ways, and me screwing up with something, and anyways, yeah. I feel like some of that explanation might have sounded more complicated than it is, because it's a lot to talk about, but it's really not. Mechanically, it's really, really not.
Once you get down to mechanics, you're good. And we definitely weren't going into everybody's abilities and all the cards and all that stuff.
No.
There's just so much.
There's a lot, but we don't feel like that there's so many things that, there's a whole bunch of difficult stuff in the cards where we need to spend a whole lot of time in it.
Right.
Like every card has basic stats, and you operate everything except for your ability cards in the same manner, and the ability cards are pretty freaking straightforward.
Yeah. So
if you can, oh, I know what I was gonna say. The only other thing I wanted to say is the win condition with running out of your deck. There is an option to not do that in the back, and Jeb and I were like, that seems dumb. I mean, I don't mind the option about making your deck smaller, but the reshuffle, neither of us thought that was a good idea, because it's such a huge strategy in this game. And if I knew that I could cycle through again, I'm liable to chuck stuff left and right, just for the fact is that I want those things to come back. Especially with how you build the deck. I'm like, oh, if I'm going to play a ranged deck, I'm going to put as many things in there, and I know I can get them back if I just get rid of the fodder.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
I could see some people who have preferences that are like, well, we're having a battle, like, why is it going to end on an empty deck instead of, like, a victory tracker killing and stuff like that. So I could see people wanting that, but I agree with you. I don't think that it's necessary to get rid of that rule, just because, like you said, one of my deck, I had 2 resurrection cards. If I could do that more than twice in a game, oh my gosh, I'd be cycling through it as quick as I could.
I mean, I guess it's a fine option, but I feel like the game was designed pretty well, feel like the intent was you gotta manage your deck, and if you run out, you better hope you have enough victory points. Yeah. That's all I can say.
Yeah,
we didn't act. I don't think we were that close to running out.
One of the games you were close. I don't remember which, but I feel like I've never.
I don't think I was like 2 turns away. Close.
No, not that close. Yeah. But I could see the difference.
Yeah. So. Definitely used some stuff, but we weren't I wasn't 1 card away or anything, which that could change after a few plays. But hopefully, like I said, hopefully that us blabbering helped you out. And again, if it didn't, or if you're like, I think I almost got it, watch 15 to 20 minutes of gameplay in this one, and I think you guys will be all set. And yeah, that's it.
All right.
We'll be back with 2-player game, and I will try to kill Jeb.